Good morning, YouTube streets. It's October 5th, 2022. Couple days before my birthday. My birthday's on October 13th, 2022. How's everybody doing this morning? I hope everybody's doing good. Tonight I am doing a premiere while I'm bowling. It's worship. My premiere's worship. So come join me. I won't be there, but come join me on for worship. There will be a concert coming up very soon. Don't know what time or what day. I don't know what time either. So stay tuned for that. What else? If you want to give up an offering, you guys can. It's in the description. Like always. I'm doing a 50% off all my merch. And a 25% off all merch. 25% off is Team Jesus. And 50% off is God is good. All one word. What else? There will be astronauts going into space today at 11 Central. The launch is at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. They will be up there until May. (8:30) they will p.m. a.m. They will be taking off Eastern Standard Time. 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So a couple minutes. We can watch it. I'll put it up so we can. Maybe. Let's do this. Wait. Okay. Okay. Okay, when it gets closer to time, welcome. Fine, I will be right back. I can't see chat. I am back. I can see chat now. In a little bit, in 10 minutes, I'll be watching the astronauts take off into space. They won't land until May of next year. SpaceX Crew 5 mission to International Space Station. I will have it up on the screen for you. You guys can watch it too. They're supposed to be taking off at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Won't get to a space station until probably late tonight or early in the morning. if everybody wants to come up this morning, you guys can. Welcome. How is everybody doing this morning? In a little bit, we will be watching a crew take off into space. The astronauts take off into space. That's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So in a couple minutes, they will be taking off. We will be watching them. I will have them up on the screen for you. And if you guys want to come up, you guys can. In 20 minutes, or less than 20 minutes, I'll be putting it up on the screen. I want to go down to Florida and watch them take off. But every time they take off, I'm at home. But when I want them to take off when I'm down there, they don't. Last time, our plane got delayed, so I couldn't see it then. No. I want to see it in real life. My mom has seen it in real life. My cousin's mom has seen it in real life. I want to see it in real life. minutes. $10. It's 8:30. I'm watching it on my phone, so I know when to switch it. So, how's everybody's morning going? Welcome. How's everybody doing tonight, this morning? And a little bit about about 4 minutes. I will be switching over to NASA. Today they will be lasting off to the Space Center until May, then coming back. So if you want to watch when take off, stay on here. It will be live. Okay. there will be no sound. But, 3 minutes. Okay. How's everybody doing tonight? Today. After the launch, I will probably have to end it. In 2 minutes. Why is it not? Here we go. Welcome. In 1 minute, they will be live at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. How's everybody doing today? This morning? They should be live. It's 8:30. Welcome. I like to watch these because, oh, they're live. Because when I was in school, we watch these when they take off. You know what? I'm gonna delete this video anyway. Okay. They must be already in the capsule. Look at the beach. And look at the sunshine.
On countdown, T-minus 3 hours and 29 minutes. LIOS installation is complete. A little bit ahead of schedule.
Okay, sure, the volume is working on the video. Welcome. If you're new, please smack that red button. I do worship, I do hangout, open panels, I do game nights. I do different kinds of stuff. I want to be here right now, where this is taking place, because it would be my first time in real life. I've seen it on TV before. It's cool too, but not cooler in person. You can't feel the engines. But you can see the things blasting off. They will be doing that in 1 minute. It should be talk time now.
looking live at the Crew Dragon spacecraft on top of a Falcon 9 rocket set to launch 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut to the International Space Station in a little more than 3 hours. It's a beautiful sight outside, beautiful weather here at the Kennedy Space Center, where we welcome you for our live coverage of NASA and SpaceX's launch of Crew 5. I'm Daryl Nail, and with me is NASA astronaut Bob Aiken, who along with Doug Hurley were the first astronauts to fly Crew Dragon into space. Bob, it's great to have you here. You're part of that historic flight, and now here you are back helping us with our launch commentary for today's mission.
Well, thank you, Daryl. I'm super excited to be here. A beautiful day to live my launch experience. Looking forward to it.
You certainly will live this experience well. We've got video recorded from just less than an hour of Crew 5 getting suited up in that historic suit up. And there you see the smoothly. You can see the astronauts there in their spacesuits after getting them fitted, tested, and those
3 hours and 23 minutes. The displays are configured for crew ingress.
That's our launch audio. We're going to pause whenever that comes up. But tell me a little about those custom flight suits, Bob.
Well, Daryl, I've heard those suits referred to as space tuxedos by some of the SpaceX team, and they are custom fit, and they are, with the crew, any sort of an issue inside of the capsule. They're custom fit, and they'll be ready to wear them when they head space.
Not designed to go outside the capsule, but certainly if something were to happen inside the capsule, they pressurize, and that keeps them. Now, we want to invite you folks who are watching to participate in our broadcast today. If you would like to ask Bob a question over the next 3 hours, you can jump on any number of our social media handles. One of the ones that we're looking at is the hashtag AskNASA handle on Twitter. Send us that tweet with a question and the hashtag AskNASA, and we will get to it. Now, in addition to Bob's analysis, we have teams across the country covering the action. There they are. We'll get updates from SpaceX headquarters, giving us a wave from out there in Hawthorne, California, and Houston, Texas. Mission Control Center, hello to you as well. And of course, right here in Florida, we've got our interviewees standing by. Check in with our team monitor operations for launch at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Take it away, ladies.
Hi, I'm NASA's Sandra Jones with NASA Communications.
Nancy Anderson, a production engineering manager here at SpaceX, as we count down to liftoff. Welcome Mission Control. This is where our teams are staffed around the clock to monitor Dragon and the mission. On console or headset in Mission Control are 6 key positions. The mission director is in charge and tasked with making real-time decisions to ensure mission success. The person that you'll hear talking to the astronauts is the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer, who you'll hear us refer to as the core throughout the broadcast. And there you can see him on the screen. The systems, including avionics, navigation software, propulsion, life support, and communication with ground support teams.
NASA has its own team members in Mission Control Houston, where they've been preparing the station for Dragon's arrival. We'll meet several of the key players later when we check in with them. And upon liftoff to the International Space Station will take about 29 hours, with Dragon flying autonomously the entire way. And just like autopilot on a commercial aircraft, the crew option or the ability to take manual control of the spacecraft if needed. So let's head back over to Florida as we await the crew's departure for the launch pad. Daryl?
Sandra and Jesse, thank you very much. Here they come, Crew 5.
Crew they're ready for crew arrival, and crew are walking out of the O&C room now, on schedule.
Indeed they are, and there they are. The astronauts of Crew 5 taking their first steps outside to the pad, from left to right. Cosmonaut Anna Kikina, Josh Casada, Commander Command, and Koichi Wakata. So as a pose for a picture, go to their ride out to the pad. 3 Teslas all lined up in queue, along with a full security escort. And the folks you see there, family, loved ones, this is a moment to have an exchange, Bob.
It is. It's an opportunity for the crew, if you will, to take a little bit of a break from technical briefs that they've been having morning as they got suited up and understood what the weather conditions are. They get a chance to say goodbye to their families, see some smiling faces, again, have a little bit of a relaxing moment with their families before they get serious again and head out to the launch pad.
And they keep a certain distance away. You can see the stanchions, you can see the family that are gathered there. And of course, that's in the interest of the astronauts' health.
That's absolutely true, Daryl. You know, they've been in a quarantine state for the last several days. You know, they don't want to bring anything to the station that we don't have, you know, really tight control of. And so, stay
Thank
back
you
from
for
folks,
staying.
But they'll give some air hugs and some waves.
Can't make out exactly what's being said, but we know from your experience, Bob, that it can be an emotional moment.
Absolutely. You know, for the Demo 2 mission, my son was super excited to yell Launch America. So that was the one thing that you could absolutely hear, even inside the suit with our deep insert earplugs. You could hear that Launch American when he sang it out.
Your wife said the same thing, that you could hear him shouting out. And that's something actually particular to astronaut and family members with young children that you have to prepare them for. I was watching a documentary. Your son wasn't exactly on board at the beginning.
Absolutely. At the beginning of the idea of a parent launching into space was something he was unfamiliar with, a little bit scared of. But we brought him down here to Kennedy, got him a chance to see a cargo launch into space, and then by the end of that experience, he was ready for me to go first, mommy to go, and he said he was going third. So we'll wait to see if that happens.
And then we'll have him on for the Crew 37 show.
Yeah, he thinks probably Crew 16. So
Crew 16, okay.
Yeah.
I like it. He's ambitious. Look at that license.
The SpaceX team has been creative with those license plates. It's always cool to see what they add to the Teslas to make the experience just a little bit personalized.
It's a nice touch. As you can see the media in the background positioning themselves for a good shot as the Teslas roll out with a full security escort on a 20-minute drive to pad 39A. And they're queuing up a playlist right now, Bob, with some tunes. In fact, I've got the playlist to one of the vehicles. I believe it's the lead astronaut vehicle, which would be the second one in this line. Here's what they're going to be listening to. Oh Yeah by Yellow, Future Zone by Kenny Loggins, Stronger by The Score, list right there.
There's a little bit of a slow and relaxed portion of it, as well as something with a little bit of emotion as they head out to the launch pad. They headed out to the launch pad. We had some tunes as well, capture kind of the same thing. Launching into space, Back in Black with from CDC, since we were both back into space again, and it was an exciting time for us.
And that was followed, I believe, by a girl from Ipanema, which was very much a contrast.
It was, Daryl. This is a 20-minute ride out to the launch pad on a very tight schedule as they work their way to get to this point. But now's the time to sit back and wind your watch and wait for the actual launch event. So that waiting music came from the Blues Brothers movie, and Doug and I knew there was just going to be a time where we had to wait our turn to launch on that rocket.
Windows are open now, Teslas, and family members just now retreating back from the vehicles, but then also getting another moment up there that just completed. There they go.
Countdown. T-minus 3 hours and 15 minutes. Crew are beginning their transport from the O&C room to the pad right on schedule.
There's the call out from the SpaceX crew now departing the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. Slow rolling. As they make a shot available for all of the media and photographers down there. They're beginning their 20-minute drive with a full forward across NASA's Kennedy Space Center and out to Launch Pad 39A. The track they're taking goes through the industrial area and then gets out to the NASA Causeway and the Kennedy Causeway. And Bob, as we were watching that moment there, I want to play a piece of tape that we have from your wife Megan talking about those moments leading up to launch. We're also going to see footage of that historic mission that you participated in, Demo 2. We'll also see hers, and we'll get to see the goodbyes from either one. Let's take a look at that now. We want to give you a little flashback. Take a look at the screen now. You might remember this. Demo 2, and there you are in the light blue with your son saying goodbye to your husband, Bob Bacon, on that historic flight.
That's right. That was a really
May
special
30th,
moment.
2020
to see
was
how
the
excited
last flight.
my son was to see his father. There were no tears. It was all smiles and cheering. My son, I think, was determined to say, "Launch America," first and loudest. And so that's what he was doing. He did a great job.
And then in April, Crew 2, this was your launch. And
Yes.
now the role was reversed. You were in the astronaut suit getting ready to go out and launch, and your husband was there with your son.
That's
The
right. And I
last
was
one.
listening out for that Launch America. And sure enough, I could hear it from probably 20 feet away. That was a wonderful moment.
You know what? Megan MacArthur, who flew on Crew 2 to the International Space Station following up your certification mission.
Yeah, it was a moment that we wanted our son to have a positive experience with, and he certainly did. Again, smiles and hugs and cheering. And while we didn't hear the voices of the crew's families and guests as they walked out, we did definitely hear that cheering when they got their chance to drive away.
And we continue to follow the convoy from high above, our flight operations team. The helicopter crew getting a good shot there as they go. Now let's check in with Hawthorne and get our first update from SpaceX's Kate Tice, who, by the way, was at this very desk, Bob, when you launched. Good to have you back, Kate.
Thanks, Daryl. I'm Kate Tice, and I'm the Quality Systems Manager here at SpaceX, and live status updates from the launch teams this morning. Now, for those following along with our launch preparations over the last week, you'll know that we had a successful rehearsal a couple days ago of our launch operations on October 2nd, followed by a successful static fire of our 9 Merlin 1B engines. Now, fast forward a bit to this morning, and we're coming up on, there it is, the T-minus 3 hour and 12-minute mark, and so far all is going well for launch. Earlier in the night, the team began clearing the hazard area and buildings around Pad 39A, known as the Blast Danger Area, or BDA, as you might hear it called out today. At T-minus 4 hours, there was a briefing by the SpaceX launch director, and good news, there is nothing significant to report on the rocket. At this time, the advanced team was also cleared to enter the pad and start prepping the vehicle for the crew's arrival, which we're tracking there on screen, and we're expecting them to arrive at about T-minus 2 hours and 55 minutes, so just shortly coming up. So, the only people remaining on the pad at this point in time are those needed for ingress of the astronauts. At the launch pad, Falcon 9 is powered on, and we're monitoring telemetry and pressurizing gas storage vessels. Engine and stage checkouts were performed several hours ago. On top of Falcon 9, of course, we have the Dragon spacecraft, and it is ready for the crew. Functional checkouts were performed, and most recently, the Dragon propellant system was pressurized to pressure, and the side hatch has been opened by the advanced team. So at this point in time, I can report that all spacecraft systems are go. And as for the range, launch range is ready to support and working no issues at this time. And as you have probably been following along, we have been tracking the weather conditions carefully over the last week as we dealt with the remnants of Hurricane Ian. As you can see on your screen, it's a gorgeous morning out there at Kennedy Space Center. The weather is cooperating as we count down to liftoff. We have been tracking downrange winds that had been no-go overnight, but as of the T-minus 6 hour weather brief this morning, it cleared and we were green there. So Everything is looking good for weather at this point, but we will continue to monitor. Now, with all that being said, let's head back over to Daryl and Bob for another Kennedy.
All right, thank you, Kate. And yes, the weather here at Kennedy is nearly perfect for launch. Let's introduce you to today's crew with Nicole Mann, a California native, holds Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, and is a colonel in the Marine Corps. Nicole was selected by June 2013, and today the Crew 5 commander will be flying into space for the first time. And once she reaches the space station, she'll be the first Native American woman to stay on station. Sitting next to Nicole is Josh Passada. He grew up in Minnesota, a physicist and U.S. Navy test pilot, flew 23 combat missions. He later became an instructor at the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School, and more recently, he served as the capsule communicator in mission control. But today, he's the pilot aboard Dragon. In the role of mission specialist is veteran Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata. Altogether, Koichi flew 4 space shuttle missions, a Roscosmos Soyuz, and was on a long-duration stay aboard the International Space Station. Altogether, Koichi has spent 11 months in space. Veteran. And the fourth member, the second mission specialist, is Roscosmos Anna Kikina. She graduated from the Novosibirsk State Academy of Water Transport in 2006. In 2012, Anna officially became a candidate for the position of test cosmonaut. Will be Anna's first flight into space as part of the resumption of integrated crew spacecraft and the Soyuz with the Russian state station Roscosmos. As part of integrated crew, a week and a half ago, NASA Hank Rubio flew to the ISS aboard a Soyuz. Flying integrated crews ensures operational safety. Members on station are trained to do maintenance. It also protects against contingencies such as problems that could arise on the station, serious medical issues, or an emergency aboard the station that requires a crew and vehicle that are assigned to return to Earth sooner than planned. All right, the crew taking a turn onto the Saturn Causeway, and this road that leads to the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is notable, Bob, because the astronauts right now taking a similar path to Hurricane Ian as they came over our area. That's the operations building behind it, but then behind that, going through here is the Vehicle Assembly Building. And after studying the data, we learned the storm took that similar path. And as we widen out the view here, you can see, there it is, the Artemis logo, and a great shot of that Vehicle Assembly Building with the crew going by. Now, the Crew 5 launch was delayed several days due to Hurricane Ian taking. And after studying the data, here's the path that we found it took. Take a look at this graphic put together by meteorologists with satellite data. It shows the track through the state. And you can see the center of circulation, of course, the devastating impacts to the Fort Myers area, more than 100 people killed, and complete devastation. By the time it crossed our right there, you can see it came out the other side on Florida. Between pad 39A and 39B, and 39B is where we had our moon rocket and Orion spacecraft. But officials here at NASA, along with SLS, made the decision to move the SLS indoors, and this is video from that day, 3 days prior. The mighty SLS and Orion spacecraft going into the shelter of the Vehicle Assembly Building as Hurricane Ian passed overhead. It's a 4-mile, 10-hour trek it was that day. And we got winds, Bob, over 96 knots at the top of one of the towers out at pad 39B. So certainly the winds were whipping up high and down below, over 60 knots. It was a good move with that rocket in the shelter.
Yes, it's just remarkable to kind of have seen the track of the storm, have it come right through the Kennedy Space Center, and to be sitting here just a couple of days later getting ready to launch a crew into space.
So now we await a new launch date, Artemis, which we know will be targeted in the mid-November area. And the astronauts just passing the Vehicle Assembly Building. Crew 4, when they were here, the rocket was out on the pad, and they got to actually go out and get a tour. This team, getting to drive by that rocket. Certainly, astronauts must be thinking about that mission, right? Artemis 1, 2, and 3 going out on a test flight out to the moon, ultimately landing back on the moon to establish more of a permanent presence there.
Absolutely, Daryl. It's a super exciting time from an astronaut perspective. As you know, we still have missions headed to the International Space Station, taking crews up both on the Soyuz rocket and on the Falcon 9 and the Dragon at this time. We look forward to seeing the Starliner vehicle make its arrival on board the International Space Station as well. But Orion, with the Artemis missions that are upcoming, is just an exciting time. Returning to the moon is something that we all dream about.
And there they are making the right-hand turn to go towards pad 39A, where SpaceX's facilities are, as well as the launch tower and the rocket that awaits them. A brand new booster. And the good ship Ingress, as you would say, Bob. Second flight.
On its second flight. You know, this is the time for that slow ride song probably to kind of play back for the crew. You know, Doug and I are waiting room music, our elevator music to kind of pass the time. The crew's, of course, excited for the mission in front of them, for the actual time to launch into space.
This is a great shot, point of view camera from the lead Tesla, looking at the security vehicle. You can see there the launch pad to the left as that rocket gets closer and closer. And I wonder, Bob, at what point do you start to feel some nerves kick in? Because there's this excitement, as you've described, but then also, especially for your flight, being the first one, there must have been some nerves.
You know, there's definitely some nervousness associated with launching into space. The crew gets a lot of training, and from an experience perspective, they try to check off as many blocks as they can so that this is something at least that they're familiar with. And so for Doug and I, you know, we had made this ride before as shuttle crew members. We climbed up to the launch pad as shuttle crew members. That wasn't, it was really the fueling operation for us where we really felt like we were doing something new, and that nervousness started to kick in.
Interesting, because yes, that's an operation unique to SpaceX.
Yes, the fueling of the rocket with the crew on board is something that was new with the Falcon 9 rocket, and it's new from a crew, from an astronaut perspective, our experience base, but they've managed to accomplish super successfully.
The security vehicle pauses, comes off to the side, and the Tesla vehicles roll on, along with the MRAP in tow. And this begins the part of a really neat experience, going up the slow grade as they pass the security checkpoint and into the blast danger area. This is an area only for the astronauts and the advanced team, as well as the closeout crew. It's a restricted area, and you go up that slow hill, and you're looking right at that rocket.
You know, Daryl, as you make your way to the launch pad, you kind of go through layers, if you will, of people that can be near you. So whether that's your family and your guests, and you're back at the O&C build, but as you make your way to the pad surface, milestones that you get past where you become more and more alone on your ride into orbit. And so heading up this hill to the launch pad surface, a smaller group, that group continues to shrink all the way to hatch closure.
And in your case, until it was just you and Doug Hurley.
That's true. It was just Doug and I, and of course all the support team that reaching out to you via the radio to be watching over and making sure that you're ready to head off into space. But it was definitely Doug and I alone with our thoughts.
These 4 Crew 5 astronauts now actually on the pad surface. As you can see them driving onto it, there's a track that they just came over that goes around the launch pad. That's a relic from the space shuttle era, as well as the Apollo. There's the base of the rocket, and dead ahead, the elevators to the launch tower that will take them up to the top of the Crew X arm and allow them to make entryway into the Crew Dragon. And at T-minus 2 hours and 55 minutes, we'll get that announcement that the crew has arrived, so they're a little early.
It's always early if you can for each of these major events, of course, and so for them to arrive when they're supposed to be there is
Core on down. T-minus 3 hours. Crew have arrived at the pad on schedule.
If the crews arrived at the pad, of course, they'll have a couple of opportunities to pause as they make their way up. There'll be some photo opportunities for them to take a mental picture of the rocket itself, look up from below before they come into the capsule.
Now, Crew 5 is NASA and SpaceX's fifth crew rotation to the International Space Station since 2020. The successful NASA program is called. It's based right here at the Kennedy Space Center. Join Megan Cruz. She is live on top of the operations and support building number 2. The leaders of this program.
Daryl, thank you so much. Yes, we are here with Phil McAllister, Director of NASA's Commercial Space Division. Phil, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, today, we just saw the crew arrive at the pad. This is NASA's Crew 5 with SpaceX. How has working with these commercial companies benefited NASA?
So we benefit. I think that's what's key with these partnerships. Obviously, SpaceX benefits from our 50 years of flight experience, but we also benefit by seeing these commercial companies and how they do business and how innovative there's new ways of doing things that maybe we haven't thought. I see the partnership as benefiting both groups. Kind of like when we first started working with the Russians, they had a very different way of doing business, and I think both programs experience.
Right, but it's not just the commercial crew program. How else have we fostered commercial space and sending more people and science to low Earth orbit?
Well, I think it all started with the commercial cargo program in 2005. That was the first, I think, real commercial partnership that we had, certainly on the human spaceflight side. So then we had the cargo capability, and then we advanced that to crew, and now we can launch people to low Earth orbit and the International Space Station. And the thing that we have on our horizon, the thing that I'm working on right now, is for commercial space stations. We know the space station, the International Space Station, is going to be retired in 2030. We need to have continuous access to space and a destination to go to. So now we want commercial companies to build a private space station where we can just be one of many customers.
Yeah, and to that end, what are we doing to encourage that?
We have 4 agreements and contracts with companies now in space: NanoRacks, Blue Origin, and Northrop Grumman. They all have different concepts, and they all have different transportation modes, and they all are kind of targeting different markets, so it's really interesting. This is sort of the early development time, and I think things will shake out. I don't think we'll have a big enough market to keep 4 space stations on orbit. So this is the time when they innovate and they're competing, and it's kind of cool to see each one of these stations and how they develop.
And again, why is this important to us? Why do we want to be one of many customers in low Earth orbit?
So I think there's lots of reasons. Number one, when we first started building the International Space Station, there wasn't any other space stations that we could use at that time, so NASA had to build it. But today we can leverage private sector investments because there are other customers other than NASA who want to go to low Earth orbit, and either for science or just to look out the window or whatever, for whatever reason. So we can take advantage of that. We don't have to pay for the infrastructure. We can just be a customer and just pay our own sort of fare for what we do. And so it's more beneficial for NASA, and then we can take that savings and put it into our Moon Mars initiative. I really feel like the Artemis mission, the SLS and the Orion that was on the pad and we will hopefully launch next month, I don't think it would be as far along as it is today if it weren't for our commercial partnerships, because they help save us money, and we could take that savings and put it into our deep space exploration program.
Yeah, and you said personally this is what you've been working on for years now. How does it make you feel knowing that, as you just said, the success we've had with commercial space is really fueling what we will see in the future with NASA?
It's been very gratifying. I have to say, when we were first starting out, I had to say, I think this will work. I think this is going to be a better way to do this particular mission. But I didn't have any proof. But then in 2012, we launched the first Falcon to the International Space Station for the cargo program. That showed that the model could work. And then in 2020, we had Bob and Doug, who flew on the Demo 2 mission, went to the International Space Station, that was just, it was just an amazing
Oh,
mission.
that's great. Yeah, yeah. And Bob, he's co-hosting the show today, so that's full circle how we're coming
Yes.
up. Can you imagine? It's Crew 5, and just a couple of years ago, we had Bob flying for the first time with Doug.
I know, it is amazing. I was just telling some of my relatives, I was like, oh, this is the 5th one. And they're like, what? How did it happen so fast? And we go every 6 months. And so we tend to accumulate missions. And
Yeah.
so we're putting the plaques on the wall outside my office, and it's getting pretty full, and that's pretty nice to see.
That's absolutely great. Thank you so much, Phil, for being here, and I can't wait to watch the launch with you. Thanks so much. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Megan. T-minus 2 hours and 15 minutes and counting. And you must hear that a lot, Bob. The people who, so many people were watching and following your mission since it was a historic first, and kind of feel an attachment to what you did that day.
Yeah, it was an exciting time, of course. I think it was a little bit strained with the COVID situation and folks kind of at home watching kind of electronically rather than in person here at the Causeway, potentially. And so a lot of folks watched the mission, and with the Bob and the Doug and the Space Dads, I think there was a connection, and they appreciated, just being a part of it.
Doug and Bob and Doug and their excellent adventure.
I don't know about all that, but we had a wonderful experience on board the International Space Station.
It was wonderful to and chronicle as you guys went along, got to the space station, and came back safely. We see some beautiful shots from high above. The weather, I mentioned at the beginning, less than 10% chance of violating. We've got onshore breezes here that are kicking up some waves and some rough surf conditions. That, of course, no impact to the launch today, but you can see the flags flying and the clock ticking down. If you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of SpaceX mission known as Crew 5, as we watch the first 2 astronauts walk out onto the pad surface, getting ready to do what, and I have to admit, I have to attribute this, the rocket recline. There it is.
I like the way they did it kind of in coordination as well. I think that was something that Doug and I didn't quite nail on the Demo 2 mission, but I appreciate them getting it sorted out by Crew 5.
That was Commander Nicole Mann and pilot Josh Cassida that just took that look up, and I mentioned the attribution. That was our voice of mission control. Rob Nagus came up with that phrase, so got to give him credit for that, the rocket recline. We'll get the next 2 mission specialists who will do the same move, but for now, they'll go into the elevator, the same elevator, Bob, that you rode on 2 missions aboard the Space Shuttle and Crew Dragon.
That's true, Daryl. That elevator there on the 39 Alpha launch pad is just a wonderful experience to kind of be able to bring it back into the game and be able to fly kind of, if you will, slowly up to the pad surface before making a stairway walk up to the actual location where you walk out to the Dragon capsule.
And there we see the top of the elevators where they'll walk out, and this is something that they have rehearsed a few times. Certainly we were here when they rehearsed it the other day during what's called a dry dress rehearsal.
Yeah, the crew has been through this before, and like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is really important to kind of get the nervousness out to have done these operations once before. We can see Nicole and Josh there as they've made their way out of the elevator. They'll walk around the back and make their way up the stairs to the actual walkout area where they'll potentially have a chance to make a phone call, reach out to their family one more time before heading out to the White Room itself and climbing into the ship.
And the closeout team right behind them from SpaceX as they greet some of the members of that team with some fist bumps. The telephone you mentioned, Bob, is there on the right-hand side of that hallway there. But what I notice is the astronauts tend to pause right about here because it looks like that is a spectacular view.
It is, Daryl. It is their chance. Of course, you mentioned the rocket recline where they're able to look up at the rocket. They're kind of co-level with the vehicle at this point. They're able to look out, see the ocean, see the rocket, see the capsule itself before getting ready to kind of take that and head into the vehicle.
And there you see one of the astronauts doing just that. To the right, they are looking out over Launch Complex 39A and the Space Coast. No doubt having a view that is similar to this. From our flight ops team here at Kennedy, what a great shot. On the left there, you've got the launch tower, and that is the crew access arm that bridges the gap between the launch tower and the rocket on the right.
And you can see, Daryl, the second two crew members getting ready to do their rocket recline, if you will, and get a chance to look up at the vehicle. I know they're excited to get their chance to climb in and strap down. Not quite as perfect and in sync as Josh and Nicole were, but they did a great job. Again, better than Bob and Doug. So
Better than Bob and Doug, but not quite as tightly choreographed as Nicole and Josh. They nailed it. Nonetheless, they get a great view right before they make their way into their spacecraft. They will ultimately take them into space. We've got a split screen now. The two mission specialists on the left and to the right. We're tracking our pilot and commander. Now they stagger the astronauts in this fashion because everything is highly proceduralized, right? As they go through the lines, check off the mission milestones, and then also it's carefully choreographed because you want to have everybody being orderly as they get into the spacecraft.
Absolutely, Daryl. There's a well-choreographed checklist that the SpaceX team has on their tablets as they follow along with the crew accomplishing the steps in front of them. But remember, it's just a single hatchway, and they need to go in sequence, and it wouldn't be helpful for all four of them to be there at the same time. So we do bring them in sequence, Nicole boarding first, followed by the rest of the crew.
Looking at the launch tower there, pad 39A. Bob, this is the same launch tower that launched the space shuttle. It's been, of course, renovated by SpaceX. They made a lot of improvements in order to accommodate the Falcon 9, but it also has some throwback to the shuttle era. It is part of the fixed service structure that's still a part of that structure today.
That's true, Daryl. The 39 Alpha launch complex was modified to be able to handle the Falcon 9 rocket. And Doug and I were super excited to launch again from the exact same location. There are remnants of the shuttle program that are still kind of out there. There's a series of chevrons. You can kind of see them in the image there. The kind of the yellow pathway, if you will. The crews go in the opposite direction there. Those chevrons point towards the slide wire baskets that they would use if they needed to do an emergency egress off the pad surface. Those slide wire baskets are a legacy item from the shuttle program.
And here we go, the first two astronauts to board Crew Dragon. On the left, Josh Cassada, and on the right, Command Coleman. All smiles as they make their way down the crew access arm.
You can see the fist bumps. They're definitely getting excited now as they get ready to board the ship.
And they make their way into what's called the White Room. Do a photo op there.
Core on countdown. T-minus 2 hours and 47 minutes. Crew have arrived at the White Room just a little bit ahead of schedule.
There's the announcement. And you can see one of the SpaceX techs handed Nicole Mann and Josh a Sharpie, which this is something that's actually on their to-do list for launch operations. And what they're going to do now is sign their signature onto the NASA deep ball, or right there around it. That NASA deep ball is encircled with signatures from all the previous NASA crews that have gone up to the International Space Station. That signature would include yours, Bob, as well as your wife, Megan McArthur.
Yes, Joe, that's a nice tradition that the SpaceX team added and allowed kind of Doug and I to get started. And it's pretty neat to get your name added to the wall there, the White Room wall that leads to the Dragon capsules that head to space station.
You see her putting her signature, making the way around the NASA deep ball, handing off the pen to Josh. And to the right, you see the SpaceX logo for their commercial missions. They're also starting a set of signatures, which is a great sign about starting to establish that economy in low Earth orbit, the commercialization of low Earth orbit.
It's exciting to see the economy in low Earth orbit continue to grow, Daryl. It's also exciting to see the cadre of astronauts continue to grow and view that group as our partners, of folks who've been to low Earth orbit, who've been into the black of space, and it's just exciting to see that group.
As the astronauts prepare to go inside, the first two, the commander and pilot, we've got the mission specialists on the left-hand side of your screen making their way towards the crew access arm. The white room was a term first used during the Gemini era, literally describing the color of the room, which is painted white. You can see an inflatable seal, which is black colored, connected to the spacecraft, and it create that environmental seal
Sorry, guys.
around the side of the spacecraft.
I forgot I was live.
Connecting it with the white room.
It does, Daryl. That
See if
seal, though, of
anybody's
course, was
new.
protect if there was a kind of rain or anything else kind of going on in the area. We don't have that today. We have beautiful weather, but it does ensure that the elements of Florida don't get far of a way into the capsule. Don't want any mosquitoes or anything headed into orbit with you. So that seal does its job.
It does indeed. There's a lot of humidity and mosquitoes out here in Florida. Fortunately today, we've got a nice little breeze that's keeping it off us here at the desk, which is nice, and kept it off the astronauts and crew when they were getting in their vehicles, running about a 10-knot onshore breeze, which should help push the clouds around. We've got a few of them out overhead. Our launch weather officer for today, Brian Cizik, from the 45th Space Wing, telling us that we've got a nice high-pressure system in the area, Bob, that's keeping everything clear as the first astronaut climbs aboard.
Core on countdown at T-minus 2 hours and 44 minutes. Crew have begun ingressing Dragon.
You gotta be careful to not bump your head, it looks like.
Absolutely, Daryl. Need to be careful as you climb through that hatchway. There's a pressure seal that needs to be kind of maintained in pristine condition, so when the time comes to close the hatch, you'll actually get a good seal with that hatch closure operation. And so the crew is keenly aware that they need to protect that environment and that they climb into the vehicle very carefully.
Carefully stepping over that seal. That's important. And later we'll see the closeout team closely inspecting that seal just to make sure that there's no debris, what they call FOD, foreign object debris, which could compromise the seal. Something you want to make sure you keep the environment on the inside and space on the outside.
That's absolutely true. That team, of course, it's a little bit difficult in the suit itself to be able to monitor and make sure that you don't bump anything that you're not supposed to bump into. But that team of SpaceX folks just does a great job with assisting the crew, letting them do as much as they would like to do on their own, but also ensuring that everything's done perfectly so that nothing has to be redone in the time-critical situation for launch.
And here come our second two astronauts, mission specialists Koichi Wakata and Anna Kikina. They're next up in the white room. Big thumbs up from Koichi. He's the veteran of this group, Bob. You got 3 first-time flyers and a guy that has a lot of experience in space.
That's true, Daryl. Koichi was in the astronaut office when I arrived a couple decades ago, just having joined and trained as a shuttle astronaut, getting the opportunity to fly on his 3rd space vehicle kind of going forward here. It's got to be exciting for him to try on a new spaceship.
And making his 5th flight into space. Got the green light flashing above, and I'm going to take that as green as go.
Certainly better than a red flashing light.
Yeah.
So it does take a relatively large team. It does seem like the crew being able to head out to the launch pad and climb in almost by themselves would be a thing. But in order to make sure that things are all done perfectly, that team of SpaceX folks follows along very carefully with the procedure to make sure everything's done exactly per the checklist.
And our mission specialists will now put their signatures on the white room as the commander and pilot finish up securing their 5-point harness into their seat, getting a snug fit. As you can see there, Josh Cassina, making sure everything is lined up correctly. Looks like he's got 4 hands. Those are his gloves. I'm sure an extra set of hands couldn't hurt.
Yeah, no, he just has the two hands, just like the rest of us, but he does have the gloves there kind of taken off to kind of give him some additional dexterity as he tries to work through getting all the strap-in process completed. You mentioned the 5-point harness, much like a racing harness that the astronauts strap in with. Likely they won't need all of the capability of that harness as they head into orbit and take their ride, but it does provide some capability should the emergency escape system be activated to really keep them strapped tightly into their seats.
Seats that are also sized to your proportions, right? And the suit is custom, but the seat, I believe, has 3 different sizes. I believe small, medium, and large.
The seat has some different sizes, the armrest have some different lengths, and the footrest have some different lengths. So there are several adjustments that can be made, not quite completely custom, but it does, I guess if you look at all the way up to, we probably haven't exercised all the options that are out there, but definitely have some flexibility in customizing the seat to make it fit the astronaut.
And interesting note about the spacecraft Endurance that SpaceX and NASA recently hitting a really incredible joint milestone. Crew 5 is SpaceX, of course, is 8th crewed mission since May of 2020, but as of this mission, Bob, Dragon is now certified for 5 times reuse. Prior to that, it was 1-time reuse, but they've gone through the process with NASA and accomplished that reuse milestone, which that's impressive. With some endurance.
Sure, Daryl, it is really critical that these commercial vehicles kind of meet their reuse milestones. You continue servicing the International Space Station by rotating crews, and so it's a huge accomplishment to get that behind folks so that we can continue planning, the duration of space station's lifetime being handled by the Dragon capsule.
We'll continue to watch the action live. In the meantime, let's toss it out back to California.
Thanks, Daryl. This is always an exciting moment watching the crew climb aboard Dragon. This phase of the mission is also referred to as crew ingress, and that term ingress is used when crew members are getting into a spacecraft or airlock, while egress means the exact opposite, they're exiting. So prior to getting on board, the crew completed a foreign object debris check or FOD check, and that means they themselves have to be inspected for any substances or supposed to be on them or their spacesuits, because this could potentially cause damage to them. And that's also why the crew is wearing covers on their boots and on the umbilical port of their spacesuits. Those covers get removed before they enter the spacecraft.
Foreign object debris prevention actually begins right here in Hawthorne before this leaves SpaceX headquarters and is carefully controlled all the way through launch day until Dragon's hatch is closed. They are now getting buckled in and attaching their umbilicals to their suits, and you can see these suit techs are present, helping them out as needed. Allow the crew to have comms through their suits, air to help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox for suit pressurization. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization.
And there are 4 seats configured right now of Dragon and are numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when looking at the seats from the hatch. Anna Kikino will be in seat 1 on the very far left, and you see she just climbed in a couple of moments ago. Nicole Mann Josh Cassada will be in seat 2, where the commander's will be beside her in the pilot seat. And then on the very end is Koichi Wakata, who is in seat 4, all the way to the right, who just climbed aboard just a moment ago as well. And of the crew members are 3 displays, which they'll use throughout the flight, getting insight into Dragon's systems, seeing any alerts or issues with the vehicle, and if required, taking control and manually flying Dragon.
Now, once the crew is all settled in, coming up will be a comm check, and that will be to make sure that they can communicate with mission control. And then, once that's complete, their seats will be rotated in position for launch. So very exciting watching them getting settled in. We've got this awesome view of the Falcon 9 with Dragon on top, crew on board already. We have been watching since this morning make their way to the launch pad, climb the fixed service structure, past that beautiful crew arm that you see there on your screen, and now they are getting settled into each one of their seats, and there is the crew 5 crew there on your right-hand screen.
And the crew will remain in these spacesuits through the ascent portion of today's flight. We'll be able to get out of their suits and get a little more comfortable shortly after liftoff, but for the portion that is the most dynamic portion of the flight, they will remain in those spacesuits. And the primary function of the spacesuits is to protect the crew in an event of a cabin depressurization. And if that would occur, the suit could inflate to provide a habitable environment long enough for the crew to return home. But with the crew now inside of the Dragon vehicle, let's go ahead and check in with Kate Tice for the latest. How's it going, Kate?
I've been following along with the launch teams, and they continue to work through the countdown. Currently no work, and we are awaiting the con checks with the crew inside Dragon, which you see there. The first check that we will hear is to check the umbilical, which is the harness that is attached from each spacesuit to the vehicle itself. You can actually see the umbilical port there on the right thigh. It's that little black box, that's the umbilical port that connects the spacesuit to their seat. The second check that we'll hear will check the ground stations, which, as the name suggests, are the ground-based support staff here on Earth. And then the third comm check that we'll hear will be for TDRS, or the Tracking and Data Relay Satellites. And those are, that's a constellation of 10 geosynchronous satellites that help us maintain contact around the globe. As of right now, the Dragon Launch App team are tracking no issues. I was listening in throughout the webcast on their nets, and it sounds like that we are running perfectly on time and just a little bit early. We have plenty of margin, so if for whatever reason something arises and we need a little bit extra time to work through an issue, we've got it in the countdown. For those that are new to our launch webcasts, of course, our countdown is the framework that helps to sync all of our teams up. So we build margin into each step that we walk through or proceed through on the countdown to make sure that we have plenty of time to work any issues that might arise. So with all that being said, everything is looking good on the Dragon side. As for the Falcon 9 team, they are located in Firing Room 4 in the Launch Control Center at Kennedy Space Center, which you see there on your screen. Those folks are settling in for final checkouts, propellant loading, and launch. The Falcon 9 team will undergo their own comm checks with the crew at about the T-2 hour mark. As for the range, they continue to report no issues, and the weather forecast continues to be acceptable. We had a less than 10% chance of violation of our weather conditions, and as you can see on your screen, it's a beautiful morning there at Kennedy Space Center. Now, of course, we are looking at weather not only at the launch site, but around the world. We need to make sure that conditions are acceptable if Dragon has to splash down in the Atlantic in case of an escape. We're also monitoring contingency splashdown locations if the crew had to come back to Earth before docking with the space station. Now, if that were to happen, SpaceX and NASA would coordinate with the U.S. Coast Guard to ensure safety upon splashdown, including extra ships and air assets to patrol the 10 nautical mile keep-out zone. That's, of course, to help mitigate safety concerns for any boaters approaching the landing area. And of course, we've also been monitoring downrange weather, which, as I reported earlier, was no-go yesterday, but at the T-6 hour weather brief turned to green. So we're leading, but keep an eye on those downrange wind conditions. So as the clock continues to tick, we're approaching the T-2 hour and 31-minute mark. All systems to continue to be go for launch. Let's head back over to Jessie, who's actually here in Hawthorne with me, just across the floor.
Thanks, Kate. Not only is today an exciting day because it's launch day, but it's also a pretty exciting year, as this year marks Dragon's 10th year in operational flight. It took a lot of love and dedication to get here today, and we are still learning and innovating from each launch. From the beginning, Dragon was designed to eventually fly people. The Dragon hanging from the ceiling next to us was initially flown to certify SpaceX for cargo missions to the space station over 10 years ago, which flew in 2010. Yet a window was added to hint at our plans for flying crew in the near future. Now, of course, the Dragon behind us and the Dragon supporting today's mission, taking Crew 5 to the space station, are very different, a testament to how far we've come. It's been a little over 2 years since we flew Demo 2, which was on May 30th of 2020. And since then, SpaceX has been regularly flying crew missions for NASA to and from the International Space Station at an average cadence of one flight every 6 months since Crew 1. Crew 5 marks SpaceX's 6th crewed spaceflight for NASA and our 8th human spaceflight mission overall, including private passenger missions Inspiration 4 and Axiom 1. Now, speaking of Inspiration 4, you may remember Jared Isaacman, who served as commander for the Inspiration 4 mission. Jared is planning to return to space with us under the Polaris program. Now, through this program, Jared, along with his crew, will embark on 3 human spaceflight missions, culminating in the inaugural flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans. The crew for the first mission, Polaris, has been busy preparing for their flight, which is currently targeted for no earlier than March 2023. In addition, the Polaris Dawn crew consists of Scott Kidd Poteet, the mission's pilot, SpaceX's Sarah Gillis as mission specialist, and SpaceX's Anna Menon, the second mission specialist and medical officer, and there you can see them on the screen. The Polaris Dawn mission will endeavor to fly higher than any other Dragon mission to date. The crew will also be attempting the world's first ever commercial spacewalk using our newly designed EVA suits. And our progress with human space exploration does not stop there. As you can see, we've started construction on a new Starship pad at Kennedy Space Center, the same pad that will take NASA's human space lander system to the moon.
NASA's efforts, particularly with the Commercial Crew Program and the certification of the SpaceX Dragon, are aiding in building the foundation for a robust U.S.-led commercial economy in low Earth orbit. Commercial transportation to space is but one element of NASA's larger plan for commercialization, and we're enabling the development of commercial space stations, private astronaut missions to station, demand for in-space manufacturing, and much more. And soon, the agency will launch Artemis to the moon and beyond as part of a test flight of the Space Launch System rocket.
Dragon, ready for comm check.
Copy, Dragon. Stand by for umbilical comm check.
And we did just hear those words that comm checks will be starting here shortly. So the Orion spacecraft and all of its components will be tested from end to end in this uncrewed test flight. This is a key milestone before we fly humans on board as part of Artemis 2, and then have humans land on the moon on Artemis 3. Now on your screen, you're seeing some waves, some thumbs up, some goodbyes to the team on the ground. Once they close this hatch...
TLT, MS1, MS2, comm check.
CDR has you loud and clear.
TLT has you loud and clear. MS1, you're loud and clear.
MS2 has you loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check is complete. Stand by for ground station comm check.
And those comm checks have begun. We're going to hear a series of those communication checks to make sure that the crew is on the ground and vice versa.
And looks like the crew is excited, waving at the camera to the world. Maybe some poses for some photos there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was saying, once they close this hatch, that's the last human being they're going to see on Earth until they splash down in a few months from now. You can also see the crew with their iPads on their tablets on their legs there. They have a variety of different and reference materials that they can view during the mission. That configured and ready for launch 2 hours and minutes from now.
And these procedures are very, very specific. They are following them all the way, step by step, all the way through. This now joining us, we are awaiting some comm checks, which they have begun, and they will be stepping through to make sure that the crew can hear it with the ground teams here in Michigan.
We will do those comm checks through multiple paths to Dragon, including Ingress and ground stations, which you'll hear coming up throughout the continuation of these comm checks. The ground, of course, refers to the different ground stations, and SpaceX has ground stations all around the globe. And then you'll also hear from Core, MD, and LD. The Core in Hawthorne is the crew operations and resource engineer. The LD is the launch director down in Florida. He's the space, the countdown ops. And then MD is the mission, who is the overall flight lead for SpaceX.
I just love the excitement of this. And this is a pretty cool view inside of Dragon. You can see the 4 seats for the 4 crew members, but Dragon's actually designed to have up to 7 crew members. So right below this row of seats, there can fit 3 additional seats. Today, since we only have 4 crew members, below the crew that you see on your screen is actually cargo stowed inside of Dragon.
Dragon 6, comm check.
Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, ground station comm check is complete. Standby for Ingress comm check.
We did have a good comm check with the Core standing, which is going to be Ingress, and that's
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Ingress comm check is complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration. Dragon, DC on countdown 1, comm check.
DC Dragon, loud and clear.
DC, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown comm check.
MD again, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear comm check over Dragon the ground. Dragon, MD, Dragon the ground, comm check.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on count.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
LD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon ground. Dragon on Dragon ground, comm check.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
And LD, loud and clear. Let's grab some fun. Dragon, SpaceX. Launch configuration comm checks are complete. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 4.100.
And now that we have successful comm checks, let's go over to the Johnson Space.
Dragon, we are ready for section 2 and ready for seat rotation.
Looks ready for seat rotation center in Houston, Texas, and check in with Shanine.
And welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room, or Mission Control Center, Houston. A team of flight controllers behind me is monitoring the space station as we speak. The crew in orbit has completed a number of tasks to prepare the station for Crew 5, like setting up tools to monitor Dragon's arrival and preparing the sleep stations for the new residents. Many of their clothes is launched on a previous cargo resupply mission. Back here in Houston, Flight Director Greg Whitney and his team are in constant communication with the SpaceX mission director for Crew 5's launch to the space station. Once we get integrated operations, the NASA flight director will be conducting a series of go-no-go polls at the predetermined checkpoints for Dragon's approach. For now, we'll continue to follow along from here in Mission Control Houston, so I'll send it back down to the team in Kennedy. Over to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you, Shaniqua. And if you're just joining us, it is T-minus 2 hours and 19 minutes until Crew 5 launches as part of the NASA Commercial Crew Program. We've got Commander Nicole Mann, pilot Josh Tassava, and mission specialist Koichi Watada and Anna Kikina. They are strapped into their seats inside Dragon Endurance. I'm Daryl Nail, and this is Bob Lincoln, history-making astronaut here. If you want to get a question live on the show, just hop on to a social media platform, any of the following: Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We're streaming on Facebook as well. Use the hashtag AskNASA, and we will take your question live on the air to Bob Lincoln. Now, the Crew program has hundreds of super smart engineers and technicians doing amazing work to take the station, and Megan Cruz is with one of them. Megan.
Yes, I do have a super smart engineer with me. This is Crystal Jones. She's with CCP's Grounds and Mission Operations Office. Crystal, can you tell everyone what that office is in charge of?
Sure, yeah. We have a wide range of functions that we do commercial crew program. One is assessing ground systems for crew speed, launch ops, and recovery. An example of a ground system is the crew access arm, which we just saw the crew walk through to get to the spacecraft. That arm has to swing away from the vehicle, launch, but if there were some sort of emergency and astronauts needed to get out of the spacecraft, that arm needs to come back really quickly to allow the astronauts to egress.
So you're responsible for just making sure that it's operating the way that it should be, if that were to happen?
Yes.
Okay. And then right after this, you're also going to go to the nearby Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. You're going to be inside a room there. We have a live shot of that room, and you're going to go there as CCP's miss, right? This is the room right here.
Yes, that's correct. And I have my FAA and ESB colleagues there with me as well. Since this is a licensed mission, they have mishap jurisdiction for some of the phases of flight, and so we all work together if an incident were to occur. I don't expect anything to happen. Full confidence in the joint NASA and SpaceX team.
You have such an important role here, like you said, a wide variety of things that you're overseeing. You've been here at NASA for almost 15 years. I mean, did you know that you always wanted to work here, and how did you make it happen?
Yes, I did always know that I worked at NASA. Ever since I was a very young girl, I dreamed of working for NASA. Unfortunately, when I was about 11, 12, my parents' drug and alcohol use began to impact our lives in a severe way. We ended up homeless, had to stay in an abandoned bus, and then eventually transitioned to a homeless shelter. After that time, we never seemed to be able to recover as a family. We lived in extreme poverty in a bad neighborhood, but it didn't stop me from trying to reach my goals. I still had that dream. In high school, I learned how to use a computer. No one in the area had a computer. I didn't have one, didn't know. So learned how to use a computer, researched colleges, how to apply, how to get applications, the whole financial aid process. And I was accepted into Florida Institute of Technology here in Melbourne, Florida, and got a master's in astrophysics, a master's in space systems.
Wow. You're not even at NASA. A long road ahead of you, but I hope that people learn to take away from your story that really you can just follow dreams if you have a passion for it to do it, right? That would be your message.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say that my dad conquered their
That's
addictions.
wonderful.
And I was extremely proud of my mom before her passing earlier. In fact, this necklace that I'm wearing is made with her ashes,
Wow.
and I wear it for launch in her memory.
And I'm sure she's very proud of you. Crystal, thank you so much for being here. We'll send it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Megan. What a powerful story from Crystal Jones, the CCP Ground and Mission Operations Office. That is inspiring to hear how she came from that difficult background to where she is now.
Absolutely, Daryl.
And it's amazing too when you think about going through a difficult road like that and then achieving such a high level of accomplishment here at NASA. We're just so proud of Crystal Jones. And thank you, Crystal, for sharing that story with us. We want to introduce you now to today's crew. If you're just joining us now, you're looking inside the capsule Endurance.
You are go for Section 3 suit leak check preparation.
Dragon is a go for suit leak check preparation Section 3 4.100.
And there you hear the confirmation that crew is ready to begin their suit leak checks. Let's start off by talking about our commander for the day. Pull down their visors. She is the second from the right of your screen. Nicole Mann, the California native, holds a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. She is a colonel in the Marine Corps. She was an FA-18 Hornet and Super Hornet test pilot and deployed twice aboard aircraft carriers in support of combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nicole was selected by NASA in June of 2013, and in the years that followed, led the Not Corps in the development of hardware in the Artemis program. Today, the Crew 5 commander will be flying into space for the first time, and after Crew 5 launches, she will be the first Native American woman to go to space, which is a wonderful accomplishment.
Absolutely. Nicole joined the astronaut office when I was the chief of the astronaut office. I'm just super excited to see a colonel in the Marine Corps head to the International Space Station from that commander seat, just like we had for Demo 2.
And you being a colonel in the Air Force, I'm sure you appreciate the military discipline that she brings to that role. Just like your partner, Doug Hurley, brought a little bit of that. Sitting next to Nicole is Josh Cassada. He grew up in Bear Lake, Minnesota. The physicist and U.S. Navy test pilot flew 23 combat missions. He later became an instructor at the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School.
Okay, Dragon, we have pair complete and complete the Section 3.
There you hear the call that the leak checks have been completed. Good sign as we move forward. I believe that was Josh Cassidy that came over the line there, who we are talking about.
Copy that, Dragon. You are go for Section 4 suit leak check.
That was a confirmation, rather, that they were to begin the suit leak checks, right?
Correct. Dragon is go for suit leak check Section 4.
All right, want to correct that. Cassada, he's one of more than 100 graduates who became astronauts going back to the Mercury program. More recently, he served as capsule communicator in mission control. But Bob, today he's in the position of pilot aboard Dragon, and that's a position you know well.
Yes, it's exciting to see Josh in that seat. You know, as all of our astronauts who come into the program, he brings a balance of operational and scientific expertise kind of to the mission in front of him.
In the role of mission specialist is veteran Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata. He has a doctorate in aerospace engineering, and in 1996 became the first Japanese mission specialist aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour for STS-72. Altogether, Koichi flew 4 Space Shuttle missions, a Russian Soyuz, and was on a long-duration stay aboard the International Space Station. During his 2-decade career as an astronaut, he has spent 11 in space, and so he is the guy with the experience on this crew, the other 3 first-time flyers. Joining Koichi in the role of mission specialist is Roscosmos cosmonaut Anna Kikina. She graduated from the Novosibirsk State Academy of Water Transport in 2006. In 2012, Anna officially became a candidate for the position of test cosmonaut. Crew 5 will be Anna's first flight into space. Now let's check in with our team out at Hawthorne, California. Kate Tice, what do you have?
Thanks Thanks, Daryl. I'm following along with the launch countdown and our procedures. We're now coming up to T-minus 2 hours and 10 minutes. As you can see there on your screen, the crew is ready for leak checks. Those should be commencing any moment now. The countdown is proceeding nominally at this point on board the brand new Dragon spacecraft Endurance. We've already heard those communication checks between the Dragon team and the crew. We will hear checks, comm checks. I'm hearing there's about a minute remaining in that leak check. There will be another communication check with the Falcon 9 launch team and the crew that comes up at about T-minus 2 hours. So at this point, we're in the leak check, less than a minute remaining. And after that, we'll be able to say leak checks are hopefully good. And at that point, the closeout lead will then verify that the cabin environments inside Dragon are good to go, and then begin procedures to close the side hatch of the Dragon spacecraft. So that's always an exciting moment. Of course, the closeout team will perform the final leak check on the hatch, and then once that is finished, the team will begin all their steps to ready the crew access arm for retraction, and then the closeout team will leave the pad at about T-minus 1 hour, and we'll hear that called out on the nets that the team has departed the pad. And at that point in time, only our Crew 5 astronauts will remain on the pad. Now, as for Falcon 9, that team is on console in firing room 4. They are preparing for their communication checks, which will occur at T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes. SpaceX engineers have pressurized the launch vehicle gas storage bottles. Those are composite overwrap pressure vessels, or COPVs. They contain gases that are used to fill tanks with hot helium as propellant is that are filled with propellant, filled with hot helium as propellant is drained out of the first and second stages.
We saw the same. Stand by while we just confirm those results long term, and then for next actions.
Dragon copies and standing by.
So as the propellant is drained out of the first and second stages, we'll top those off in the last half hour or so before liftoff, those COPVs. Now, we also use pressurized gases to spin the Merlin engine turbo pump when we start an engine in space. The second stage MVAC engine starts up after the first stage separates, and then the first stage engines need to be restarted for that landing sequence. The gases are also used for attitude control systems, which help the vehicle with its orientation for deploying the grid fins and landing legs. Now, of course, we're continuing to keep an eye on the weather. You can see it remains a beautiful day at Pad 39A. We are watching weather at the launch site as well as around the world for contingency abort and landing zones.
And Dragon SpaceX for suit leak checks.
And it sounds like we're going to get confirmation on those leak checks now.
Go ahead, SpaceX.
All right, Josh. We saw you come in a little bit lower than you did on dry dress, so just as a measure of precaution, we're going to have the closeout lead come in and just take a quick look and double check that everything is looking secure for zippers and umbilicals. How copy?
We copy, and we were thinking the same. Thanks a lot.
Good read.
All right, so it sounds like pilot Josh Cassida, his suit pressure is a little bit lower than what we read during the dry dress, which was the basically dress rehearsal that we performed early on Sunday, October 2nd. So the closeout team is going to come back in and just make sure that all of the zippers on the spacesuit are zipped up to the appropriate height, just make sure that everything is locked into place. So we have plenty of margin in the launch countdown. The countdown is to make sure that all the teams are working toward T0 in a coordinated fashion, and we have lots of margin built in. So we are okay to go in and recheck and reperform that suit leak check on. So at this point in time, everything continues to be acceptable for launch. We're coming up to T-minus 2 hours and 6 minutes. So I'm going to toss it back to Daryl over at Kennedy Space Center.
All right, thank you, Kate. And I'm here with Bob Behnken, astronaut from Demo 2 and NASA's first mission. And we want to talk a little bit about that leak check. Bob, you were following along as they were doing the checks. Going inside to double check Josh Cassidy's suit. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, we heard the words from the space team. What they saw was a slightly different indication than they saw during Josh's last leak check, and the team is just going to double check that to make sure they don't see anything awry. Just a abundance of caution, as you heard, the crew reported a good leak check, and so the team's just using, again, an abundance of caution.
But the air obviously comes through that suit, it goes out the suit, right? So this is a level maybe a little higher than what they normally see.
That's correct.
All right, very good. Well, we're back here at Kennedy, and the weather is beautiful launch as we stand by, and there you can see the suit tech in there examining the zippers and the connection points in Josh Cassidy's suit. So they hadn't shut the hatch yet, so that was an easy entry for that tech to go in there and check on that.
Yeah, so they'll check each of the places where there could possibly be a leak. One of the places is that umbilical that you've seen them disconnect, and they're now reattaching after they checked the seal that was there. They'll verify the zippers that are on the suit to make sure that those are all closed all the way to the very end. And I know that for the crew, these sorts of situations can be a little bit frustrating. They can kind of break the sequence of events, but I know they'll get right back on track here and continue.
These are highly trained astronauts that have been getting ready for this moment for the past couple of years, certainly ready for all situations that they may come up against. And these suits, Bob, carry a lot right into the spacecraft.
Dragon ground.
Pause. C3, I've got you 5x5. How many?
Got you the same, thank you.
So I don't want to speculate too much, but when you pull the umbilical away, there's an opportunity for the comm system to just need to be re-verified. So we heard Josh check back in.
Those connection points are grouped together, right? You've got comm and air flowing into the suit at the same connection point.
Correct.
Also giving a check to Honest, or maybe just doing some zipping up, rechecking. We've had some social media questions coming in. We've asked you to participate, and we want to do that right now by asking questions of our expert astronaut, Bob Behnken, here. Of course, you can hit us up at hashtag AskNASA on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And our question is, coming in from Andy Hughes 01, why do the new spacesuits involve long rubber boots? Those are high boots.
It's a great question, Daryl, as to why the SpaceX suit looks the way that it does. Of course, as a commercial company, they were free to come up with a suit that really then had to be assessed whether it actually accomplished the mission of protecting the crew, and in those unlikely cases where there might need to be an atmosphere of their own because there was something wrong with the one inside of the spaceship. And so SpaceX chose the high boot configuration there, but it met the mission needs, and so the NASA team was able to embrace it and move forward.
All right, we'll keep an eye on the action inside the Crew Dragon Endurance and our three astronauts and one cosmonaut who are standing by. The member of the closeout crew has exited the capsule.
We got a report from the closeout lead about verifying all these zippers. We're just chatting with a few more folks to see if there's any other actions we want. 15 minutes remaining in the margin, so plenty of time.
Okay, Dragon top.
All right, there you heard the discussion between SpaceX and the NASA.
Hello.
Astronauts.
Hey, good morning, Brett.
Is not child's play. Every Dragon astronaut toys with them, and there's one away from this part of make sure that nothing things that we don't make your way up while they're working on that. But we want to take a little look at the stuffed toys that are inside the crew. We don't know, or at least most people don't know, what's inside Crew 5's cabinet. But it has a purpose. When the toy starts floating, the strapped-in crew has confirmation they've reached microgravity. The toy is called a Zero Jader, and there's been a half dozen or so on Dragon. So starting with this little guy, you can forget plush Earth floating around by himself on the first uncrewed test flight in 2017 called Bell 1. And that's Anne McClain there. She was the one that received it. And that was followed up by a sequin-bedazzled dinosaur named Tremor, picked out by those fellows right there, Bob and Doug. Doug Hurley's son, Jack, and Bob's son, Theo. One then took a toy baby Grogu with them to the first four-person crew when they reached space. But since then, well, it's been all stuffed animals. A penguin for Crew 2, and a turtle for Crew 3, and a turtle and a chimp for Crew 4, as you can see there. And so, like that, Bob was kind enough to bring Tremor with him that you saw floating around in his capsule. This is actually Tremor, the one that went up in space.
And it's true, Joe. This is the actual Tremor. It's got the tether still installed, if you will, that we use to keep track of it so that it didn't get lost on board the space station or float too far away.
SpaceX for suit leak checks.
There they go, starting up the suit leak checks again.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right, Josh, that completes the troubleshooting actions we wanted to take. So we verified that your umbilical has been reseated and your zippers are closed. Given that, we are recommending that you proceed back to SECI of 4.100 and reperform the suit leak check preparation and suit leak checks. I'll copy.
Okay, Dragon copies. We're going to mention 3 of 4.100, and we'll let you know when they're ready to reperform the suit leak checks.
Good readback.
All right, so they're going to go to suits. And while they do that really quickly, son choose bedazzled sequined dinosaur for...
Well, Daryl, you know, there's no telling what goes through the minds of two young elementary school boys. My son, Theo, and Doug's son, they had a collection, and dinosaurs were near and dear to their hearts. They went through the collections that they had in front of them, and they picked the Apatosaurus Tremor. And so I'm glad that some other folks have been able to follow along with that tradition and be able to excite a couple of kids, if you will, about, you know, flying in space, even for a stuffed animal.
It's great to hear the younger generations about space with something that they can access. And can you confirm that all the sequins are still there?
I can confirm, and I do know that the teams look really closely at each of the zero-G indicators to make sure that they're compatible with the SpaceX Crew Dragons environment as well as the space station environment. And so we got approval, and we were able to take the Apatosaurus Tremor with us into space.
That's a neat thing, and it will hold. Crew 5 is the latest launched by Kennedy's Commercial Crew Program and Dragon.
Care is complete at step 3.9. We are ready for the checks.
Copy that, Dragon. You are go for Section 4 suit leak check.
All right, while they start up,
We go for suit leak check.
the communication confirming they're going to restart the suit leak checks. Bob Bacon telling me that the suits hit just a little bit.
Have
They
to
make
go
that
soon,
check.
so.
In the meantime,
Hey, this morning, Brett.
Check in with Kennedy's Commercial Crew Program. It was created in 2011 and has been flying astronauts from American soil to the International Space Station for the last 2 years. Let's bring in NASA's Megan Cruz, who's with Kennedy Center Director Janet Petro.
I am, Daryl. Thank you so much, Janet. It's always so great to have you here, especially for a day like today. You know, we're about to launch this new crew to the ISS. How do you feel about Kennedy again playing this important role in continuing what we do on the space station?
Well, thank you so much, Megan, for the question. And as you know, Kennedy has a very long history of doing really some incredible things. And of course, we were established 60 years ago to do the incredible mission of landing a man on the moon and then returning him safely. And in the 6 decades since then, we've been doing an incredible amount of impactful missions. And a lot of those missions have really helped what we do here on Earth and for the benefit of mankind here on Earth.
That on-orbiting laboratory up there is doing incredible science and technology and research that's really benefiting humans here.
Yeah. That's some of the things that we've been an impact here on Earth because we're launching and because of what we're doing here at Kennedy.
Yeah, so it's incredible to think that 24 years ago was the first section, the module of the International Space Station Unity, which was launched. And in that time, then, we've had more than 20 years of a human continuous presence on the International Space Station. And every single time we launch a vehicle, whether it's a cargo or crew, we send up science and cargo and payloads where we do science research and technology development. And all of that not only benefits what we do here on Earth, promoting technology and bettering our life here, but also helps us to look forward to when we go back to the moon and then on to Mars. I'll talk about a few projects that we do here at Kennedy that I'm really proud of. One is the M-Solo. It's a commercial off-the-shelf mass spectrometer that'll help us seek out and search for ice on the lunar surface.
Wow.
And then, of course, we are the experts resident here at Kennedy for plant biology. And as we're going to be sending our astronauts further and further into space, to the moon and then on to Mars, they're going to want some fresh food. And so that plant research is really going to help enable that to happen.
Yeah, and of course you're alluding to Artemis. Right behind us is the iconic vehicle. Inside there is our Artemis 1 rocket. How excited are you for launch later this year? And just excited for again, Kennedy's role in deep space exploration.
Yeah, it's an incredible honor to be here leading this center for that really, really historic mission coming up. And of course, Ian threw us a cabal, and so we had, we made the right decision and went back into the VAB. But the energy around the center and even across the whole space coast is still very palpable. Looking forward to that launch. And when it goes, boy, it's going to really rock the entire space coast. And as I said, it's
and copy that, Dragon. We saw the same with 4 seats all passing their lead check,
which is then going to help us go on the moon and then on to Mars.
Janet, thank you so much. We actually just heard a call out there.
We are going to proceed out and move into section 5 for side hatch closure and delay any other troubleshooting steps until we get on orbit. How copy?
Okay, that's great news. Dragon copies, and we are going to continue into section 3 of 4.100. Sorry, section 5, 4.100. Thank you.
Janet, thank you so much. So sorry about that. We did want to take a pause so that people can hear again the operational loops that we're listening into. But thank you so much, and I hope to be watching Artemis 1 with you soon.
Thank you very much, Megan, and go Crew 5.
Perfect. Janet, thank you so much. Back to you, Dale and Bob.
All right, thank you, Megan and Janet. And as we were watching the crew there, we saw their suits inflate. We saw that pressurization happen, and then you heard a report out. And if you could just recap that for me, Bob.
Yeah, I think the team saw similar indications, but it was 4 good leak checks with similar performance from all 3 suits, or all 4 suits that they saw during that first leak check that they accomplished today inside the capsule. So they're going to continue with the launch count, and any further troubleshooting will be delayed until they're on orbit. So we're ready to continue with the count.
And so up next, you can see there is and close out team will be the hatch is above the entryway into Dragon. That was the environmental condition hoses. They'll document that seal that on their mobile pad and move through the process.
You know, we always think of things like hatch closure as closing the door and it's done in an instant. But closure of the hatch on this spacecraft is done very carefully with a lot of meticulous steps to ensure that environmental seal is just pristine and they are going to get a good seal when they close it up.
We had the tech go over it back in spacecraft, so double check on that. They also document the seal. You'll see one of the techs take pictures all the way around the seal.
We could think some about that hatch being closed, and then it'll be reopened when they come back at the end of their mission after splashdown and when the vehicle's brought on board the ship. So it's going to stay closed for a long time after they get it closed for the spacecraft launch.
That's a great point. So it needs to be closed well.
Yeah, closeout team is final steps in preparation for stand by for transition to at hatch closed. Ensure that all items are secure from now through launch.
And what is that?
It's just a protective piece of
Dragon copies. All
to make sure no fog or anything falls down into that.
At hatch closed.
Good work.
So some protective equipment in the spacecraft. All right, very good. We'll key action and tracking the progress as we head down towards launch. T-minus 1 hour and 50 minutes until liftoff of Crew 5. Want to head on out to Megan Cruz, who is with our NASA Administrator, Bill Nelson.
Yeah, it's our honor to have you here, Administrator. Thank you so much. I want to talk to you about how we've had this continued press on the ISS for 22 years. What do you think of that legacy?
Isn't it something? Think of the 3,000 investigations that we have done, scientific things, and the innumerable things that we've actually discovered doing all of this science on the International Space Station. Of course, it helps us train our astronauts as we get ready to go to the moon, and then we're going to go.
It's such a unique and awesome platform. So yeah, the fact that we can have this continued presence is so great. And you know, Crew 5 is his first mission to resume integrated flights to the space station with Roscosmos. Integrated crews have always been the norm on the space station, right?
That's right, because we built the space station
in front of a
together,
camera too.
now with 15 nations, particularly with the Russians. There's a Russian segment on the station. They provide
I'm about to leave.
The U.S. provides the electricity.
So if you guys want to watch the rest of this, it would take off about an hour and 48 minutes. Go to nasa.org. NASA.org.
Ability to get to Earth. Say we had a medical emergency and had to get somebody to Earth. You need that integrated crew so we can still operate both parts of the space station. So safety is a big reason.
Yeah, and you know, we are launching today with the help of SpaceX. The fact that we've had such...
God bless you and keep you. May the Lord face shine upon you and give you peace. Amen. I'll see you everybody later.